Agent Orange is a herbicide and defoliant chemical, one of the tactical use rainbow herbicides. It is widely known for its use by the US military as part of its herbicidal warfare program during the Vietnam War from 1962 to 1971. Agent Orange was developed in the 1940s by scientists as a way to destroy enemy crops and cover. It is a mixture of two herbicides, 2,4-D and 2.4,5-T. The chemical is named after the orange-colored barrels in which it was stored. The US military's use of Agent Orange during the Vietnam War was part of a larger defoliation program known as Operation Ranch Hand. This operation, which lasted from 1962 to 1971, aimed to deprive North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces of cover and food by destroying crops and dense jungle foliage. The decision to employ herbicides like Agent Orange stemmed from the military's strategy to reduce the guerrilla warfare advantages held by the enemy, who utilized the dense forest cover for ambushes and supply routes. Agent Orange was just one of the several herbicides used in the war, but it became the most infamous due to its widespread application and severe consequences. The deployment of Agent Orange involved aerial spraying from C-123 aircraft, which could cover large swathes of land quickly and effectively. Helicopters and ground-based spraying methods were also utilized in more targeted operations. Over the course of the program, approximately 19 million gallons of herbicides were sprayed over 4.5 million acres of land in Vietnam, as well as parts of Laos and Cambodia. The heaviest spraying occurred in areas suspected of harboring significant enemy forces or along strategic routes such as the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The impact on the landscape was immediate and profound. Dense forests were stripped bare, leaving behind barren and poisoned land. Agricultural fields were destroyed, which not only removed potential food sources for the enemy, but also devastated local civilian populations who relied on these crops for sustenance. Water sources were contaminated, leading to long-term environmental degradation. The health and environmental impacts of Agent Orange have been severe and far-reaching, affecting millions of people and vast areas of land long after the Vietnam War ended. The primary toxic component in Agent Orange, TCDD, dioxin, is one of the most dangerous chemicals known to humanity. Dioxin is not only highly toxic in small quantities, but also extremely persistent in the environment, accumulating in the food chain and causing long-term damage. Both US military personnel and Vietnamese civilians exposed to Agent Orange have experienced a range of serious health problems. For veterans, exposure has been linked to numerous cancers, including Hodgkin's lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, prostate cancer, and lung cancer. Beyond cancer, other health issues include diabetes, ischemic heart disease, Parkinson's disease, and various skin disorders. Vietnamese populations have faced even more profound and pervasive health crises. Studies have shown that dioxin can cause reproductive and developmental problems, immune system damage, and endocrine disruption. One of the most tragic consequences has been the prevalence of birth defects among children born to parents exposed to Agent Orange. These defects include neural tube defects, cleft palate, and severe physical deformities. Vietnamese children born decades after the war continue to suffer from these conditions, indicating the long-term genetic damage caused by dioxin exposure. The environmental damage caused by Agent Orange has been extensive and enduring. The primary aim of the herbicide was to defoliate the dense jungles and forests that provided cover for enemy forces. This led to the destruction of millions of acres of forest land, resulting in the loss of biodiversity and the disruption of ecosystems. Many of the affected areas, particularly in South Vietnam, have struggled to recover, with forests remaining sparse and wildlife populations diminished. Soil contamination has been another significant issue. Dioxin binds tightly to soil particles, leading to prolonged contamination. This has affected agricultural productivity, as crops grown in contaminated soil can absorb dioxin. entering the food chain and posing risks to human health. Contaminated water sources have also been a major problem, with rivers, lakes, and groundwater remaining polluted years after the spraying stopped. In the years following the war, extensive scientific research has been conducted to understand the full scope of Agent Orange's impact. Studies have documented the levels of dioxin in affected areas and assessed the health outcomes of exposed populations. This research has been crucial in establishing the links between exposure and health problems, leading to changes in medical and environmental policies. Efforts to address the environmental contamination have involved large-scale remediation projects. One notable example is the cleanup of the Da Nang International Airport, a former US airbase and one of the most heavily contaminated sites. The project, initiated by the US and Vietnamese governments, used thermal desorption technology to treat contaminated soil, effectively reducing dioxin levels to safe standards. The health and environmental crises caused by Agent Orange have led to significant legal and ethical questions. US veterans sought compensation through a class action lawsuit against chemical manufacturers, resulting in a $180 million settlement in 1984. However, many veterans and Vietnamese victims argue that this settlement was insufficient to cover the extensive healthcare costs and suffering caused by dioxin exposure. The Vietnamese government has repeatedly called for greater international assistance and reparations to deal with the ongoing effects of Agent Orange. Advocacy groups and international organizations continue to push for recognition of the issue and increased support for affected communities. The legacy of Agent Orange extends beyond the immediate health and environmental damage. It has influenced international regulations on chemical weapons and contributed to a broader understanding of the need for strict controls on the use of hazardous substances in warfare. The lessons learned from the use of Agent Orange have shaped policies aimed at preventing similar humanitarian and environmental crises in future conflicts.